Last time on Midnight Rank Theater.
Quit my
What's going on?
From what I've observed, Creepy Ween is by far the most popular series of reviews that you've done. By taking it over and inserting myself as a chief reviewer, I will steal all the ad revenue that you have on Blip, as well as all of your subscribers on YouTube.
The 2012 His Media porn and parody version. Didn't you know?
That's it, I'm out of here. The hell?
I was doing a scan of the spell Decker used before, and there's a problem. A big one.
What kind of a problem?
And so our story continues on a normal day by Decker Shado's empty couch.
Hello, World Wide Web. I'm Decker Shado, the internet personality with the best hair. I'm sure you remember back when I reviewed Gammera the Triphibian Monsters that I mentioned I had quite a surplus of something else on those DVDs. I'm talking, of course, about Gamera, a kaiju monster that started its life merely as a Godzilla ripoff, but was done well enough it spawned its own series with its own devoted fanbase. And now that it's the month of monsters, why not just dive right into my little collection with a Gamera Marathon, as I've got more than enough to... What the hell? Oh, for fuck's sake, Copyright Hawks, this is a public domain movie!
Well, this is just great. It's like you said, Chibi Thulu.
There aren't many days I hate being right all the time, but this is one of them.
Creepy! What are you doing? Didn't you torture me enough last time?
Don't take that tone of voice with me, young man. I didn't come here of my own volition. This was your doing.
What are you talking about? I finished reviewing that horrible movie with you. That should have been the end of it.
Under regular circumstances, it probably would have been. Thanks to your little unrehearsed solo flight into the black arts, our reviews have become entangled.
Entangled? How?
Chibi Thulu is still looking into it, but right now the signs indicate that you cast the spell incorrectly. Nice going, by the way.
Will you try finding Kaloi's Phycomone wings in a Texas supermarket?
The point is, Decker, it seems we're stuck together for more than just one review.
How long, then?
At the point, I have no idea. What are you reviewing?
Oh, Gammera the Invincible as part 1 of Gamera Marathon.
You're doing a month-long special?
It's like he's a glutton for punishment.
Who asked you? Anyway, yes, I'm reviewing Gamera all month long.
That's Gamera.
What?
Gamera. You keep saying Gamera.
Well, crap. Gamera Marathon just doesn't have as much of a ring to it.
You could always just call it Gammerathon.
No, if I do that, people will realize I'm ripping off James Rolfe.
What?
I said people will think that I'm ripping off James Rolfe.
Right.
Anyway, look, the only way to break the spell is to finish these reviews, and let's just stop fucking around and start the review already.
You were right. He is cute when he's angry.
The film opens to several shots of painfully obvious miniatures, but if I'm to be honest, they are pretty high quality for the time period. This also introduces us to Dr. Hidaka, played by Eiji Funakoshi. He's just passing by the northern coast of Canada for reasons not nearly as important as the events he witnesses while he just so happens to be there.
What are Russian jets doing here?
Progressing the plot. Seriously, they never explain why they were there, and the actions they take don't match up too well with those you would expect people to do if they actually just flew into the wrong area.
Decker. We've barely gotten started. Leave some things to talk about as the film progresses.
Oh sure, if I take advice from you on how to do my reviews, next thing you know I'll be reviewing Planet of the Erotic Ape in my underwear.
Well, why don't you? The word of the Russian planes quickly reaches a U.S. airbase in Alaska, and we suddenly shift from the Japanese actors with English dubbing to American actors simply speaking English lines.
You will intercept and conduct them to base. If they resist, you will use Plan Skylark and destroy.
Huh. So they actually recorded English lines for the English-speaking characters? Bit out of the ordinary, but okay.
No, Decker, they didn't. When this film was being brought to America, half the scenes were cut and remade by the American studio.
So this isn't the original Gamera movie then, it's more of the George Lucas-style special edition.
Or the 1960s equivalent of the Power Rangers.
Fucking brilliant. A shining example of what might happen if 4 kids went back in time and did kaiju films.
Don't even joke.
Despite their best efforts, the Russian jets won't respond to their signals. The Americans respond to this apathy by shooting one of them down, which doesn't do so well to protect northwest Canada, as it turns out the jet was carrying a nuke, detonating on impact.
Only a nuclear bomb could cause a blast like that.
You're right. It was one of those jets we saw. And here I stand staring at that cloud when I ought to be taking the shot of the year. A great news photographer I am.
Might get a nice picture, but what will the headline be? Atomic explosion rocks frozen wasteland. Nothing killed.
I wouldn't be so sure. The fallout range of those things can get pretty wide.
Don't worry about that. This was a travel-sized nuclear warhead, and therefore the Japanese expedition and all surrounding Eskimos are safely out of range. However, that doesn't mean there are no repercussions, as mere minutes into this film, we are already introduced to the real star of the show, Gamera, a 200-foot-tall turtle monster from prehistoric times. Strangely enough, though, this expedition doesn't seem to notice that minor detail.
They can identify aircraft nationality from ground level with the naked eye, but nobody notices a bipedal turtle of that size amidst the barren landscape? What?
I'm sorry, I still quite haven't gotten over the snarky plushie thing.
Bite me.
Mere minutes after, HQ figures that maybe the jets just flew off course. The fact that they killed one of them isn't brought up, nor is the fact that the jet pilots never responded to radio communication. The Eskimos provide our small group with a stone carving of Gamera out of nowhere, right before their ship gets a much more detailed example of the creature.
Hold on, if he could breathe fire, then why the hell did he need to wait for the nuke to thaw the ice?
It's a kaiju film. If an atomic bomb didn't directly create the creature, it must still be involved in the creature's awakening.
The survivors do manage to relay a message back to the American base, but they obviously don't believe this story about a 200-foot-tall turtle destroying their ship. They also have a severe problem with intelligence leaks, as this makes front-page news all over the nation. Not to mention a broadcast debate between Jules Manning and Dr. Contraire, played by Mort Marshall, and Alan Oppenheimer, respectively. Oppenheimer being a very prominent voice actor, even today. You may recognize him from such games as God of War 2 and Kid Icarus Uprising.
Who gives a damn about that? Decker, that's Skeletor!
Huh?
Skeletor! From He-Man and later She-Ra!
Oh, I never watched those.
You are dead to us.
Anyway, the debate is painful to watch, as Contraire's position is that if it hasn't been disproven, it must be 100% true, while Manning holds the opposite but similar stance that anything that hasn't been proven must be 100% false, leading to an argument so pointless it doesn't really matter that we can't understand what the fuck they're saying.
Hey, you!
Remember that we're
Call
on
me,
the
how
air,
dare
will
you
you,
call me a
gentlemen?
name? Where'd you get your diploma? Made in
Ladies
Japan?
and gentlemen,
Oh, you're going to give me
I'm
that?
afraid that
What do
we
you
are
want,
out of
advance
time.
man?
I hope you'll be with us
Thinking
again
about
next
circus or
week for
something?
another
What do you
huge
expect to
discussion.
make out of this? I'd like to
Tell
see
you who
who
the
you
guest
are.
will be. You'll
You
be
go.
here and we'll...
You can always count on aliens to spice up your monster movie, though, as flying saucers have been photographed but are still yet to be explained. Fortunately, despite the fact that all evidence is hearsay, in this strange alternate universe, the United States government actually organizes during a crisis situation.
Dr. Hidaka? Does he have some standing in world science councils? I've never heard of him. And I'm considered expert enough to head committees on nuclear fission and the like.
True. That is Steve Zacharias, writer of Revenge of the Nerds.
Of what?
Oh, for the love... Revenge of the Nerds! 80s comedy. 3 sequels! What the hell were you doing in the 80s?
Starving, mostly. The mysterious flying saucer makes its way to Japan, where we meet Miss Sakurai, whose little brother Toshu is an unusually avid fan of, guess what? Turtles. This has to be the most uncaring family on top of it, as his sister and father gang up on him, demanding he set free his small pet turtle, despite how little it could possibly disrupt things at home.
He releases it, all alone by the shore, which means he also has front row seats to see the newest sensation to come to Japan. He's also not the brightest bulb in the box, as he runs away right up a lighthouse, which Gamera smashes in short order. Luckily, though, the monster is bipolar and catches the kid before he falls to his death.
Huh? Gamera put me down? Yes, you're safe. You're safe. Thank goodness.
This is where his alternate name, Gamera, Friend of Children, comes from.
Am I the only one unimpressed? He saved the kid from the crisis he caused. It's like those commercials BP released bragging about how they cleaned up the Gulf of Mexico.
The monster moves on to a geothermal power plant. Of course, they didn't have one of those model sets available, so they just used a spare nuclear power plant for this scene. Hidaka manages to rush there, as well as the military, to give us our first official face-off against Gamera.
Stand by for signal for full discharge.
Look, he didn't even slow him down.
Yes, this was a mistake.
Well, so is silly, buddy, but look how that turned out.
Decker, people are going to die.
Yeah?
What do you mean, yeah?
Wow, it is true. So many horror and action movies have finally snapped the poor guy's brain.
Hey, the only bad death is a poorly done death. Or footage of real death used to convey a story's fake death. And while it is stock footage that attacks Gamera, it's not of people being killed, so it's alright. But obviously this giant turtle doesn't take any damage from this, and instead snacks on the resulting flames, which greatly surprises the onlookers.
He actually ingested the fire?
Yes.
Though legends of fire-breathing monsters like the Chimera and dragons have persisted through the ages, still it's astounding to discover such a creature really exists.
Yes, it is.
While it sort of adds credence to your creature to give it a backstory based on history or mythology, there's no fucking way I'm going to accept Gamera as reasonable just because someone told a story about a cross between a lizard and a Bic lighter.
Didn't you make that video going on and on about how the universe is filled with blue women who want to have their way with you?
Details, details.
The scientist goes on to say that Gamera may be a creature from 200 million years ago, before the Earth had so much oxygen, and his fire breathing is actually linked to his diet, which literally is fire.
Hold on. 200 million years ago, there was a lot more oxygen in the atmosphere than there is now. It was the beginning of the Jurassic period in the middle of the Mesozoic era.
Decker.
Before the Earth was oxygenated, it was the Precambrian era.
Decker?
That was more like 4.5 billion years ago, and there was only single-celled life forms then.
Decker!
What?
It's a kaiju film from the 1960s. If anyone uses it as research for their science project, they deserve to fail. Because Gamera was trapped under ice before being released, they deduced that cold just may be its weakness. Conveniently enough, the Japanese military just so happens to be developing freezing bombs, so when the monster moves on to head to the mountains, they strike with those really cool bombs and use dynamite to create a landslide.
Unfortunately for them, after the cold wears off, Gamera slips back into his shell to show off another one of his tricks.
What the hell was...
I give up on explaining.
Did not see that coming.
They figure out now that the Rock told them that Gamera could fly all along, but before we can get the plot moving past this point, we need another long scene of the English-speaking actors going over things we pretty much already know, and not actually telling us what the plan is, as they refer to it ambiguously as Plan Z. After this, we see Gamera has returned to Japan, courteously flying into the airport. Seriously, can I have one crossover review with you that does not have a goddamn dance sequence? What the hell is this song anyway? It's just one line repeating.
Well, we could always switch to some more fitting music.
Or, better still,
Fuck No!
While the civilians are evacuating, the kid from earlier is convinced that all Gamera needs is a good friend. So while the authorities keep the monster docile by feeding it a line of fuel cars like sausage links, he climbs aboard.
Like a total idiot.
This goes nowhere as there is a blast that knocks him and another off the train, leaving the kid uninjured and the monster still friendless.
All this is in preparation for Plan Z, which still hasn't been explained, even though a representative from Japan is...
Our fuel supply is now dangerously low.
Wait a minute. What in the hell?
Our men are working around the clock to complete the installation.
You'd think the American studio would try maybe just a little to not offend the Japanese audience.
An English dub of a kaiju film that changes scenes to depict the Japanese in the most racist way possible. It's like if The Color Purple were edited by the writer of Birth of a Nation.
Back to the real movie and the execution of Plan Z, with the kid tagging along despite the fact that he honestly doesn't do anything else for the rest of this movie. They work to lure Gamera to Oshima Island with a tasty trail of fresh fire, but oh no, a wind has kicked up, spoiling the plan. Quick thinking, and they set a building ablaze to tempt the creature further, but wouldn't you know it, it starts pouring, putting the fire out.
All hope seems lost until some handy Deus Ex Machina from the volcano god appears, giving our heroes the final ridiculous method needed to keep the monster on the island. Which also means that all of their earlier tricks were kind of pointless, since the volcano was going to erupt anyway.
Hey, now they did point him in the right direction to find it.
It's 200 feet tall. I'm pretty sure he'd be able to spot it from the mainland.
The other Japanese doctor who remained uncredited in the English release of the movie flies in, despite the fact that the ash cloud would make that stunt just about impossible. This brings all the important characters together to witness Plan Z in action, where they lure Gamera into a specific spot, and then...
Are you serious?
Like they could fit Gamera into a gotcha machine.
We find out that this capsule is actually the tip of a rocket the size of a skyscraper, which blasts off of Earth on a one-way trip to Mars, allowing them to stop Gamera's rampage, despite the fact that they honestly couldn't destroy him. Which is kind of a meh ending, if you ask me. I mean, there's no climactic struggle. Just pop him in, twist it close, throw him away, the end.
Well, it's not like they can spawn a series if by the end of the film he's been vivisected and now commands a high price as an exotic soup.
I guess. Anyway, that was Gammera the Invincible.
I know.
No, I was...
What?
It was alright.
I know!
Stop that! The backstory for the creature is alright, if flawed, though as of yet I don't know how much of that is simply from the dub, as a lot of these details that didn't work in the actual science were spoken in the newly inserted scenes. Nevertheless, Gamera himself is an interesting creature, the suit is high quality, and there are more than enough shots showing off that very well. The story at the heart of the movie is somewhat basic, but that's okay if I'm to be honest. We're watching this to see a giant turtle destroy buildings, and that's just what we get. But the human characters are a bit lacking in depth and reasonable motivation. They do give a brief rundown of just what the scientists were up to in the opening, but it's over so fast I honestly don't remember what it is, despite how many times I've watched this movie. The most confusing character to me is the child. He starts off like the cliché individual who believes the monster is good on the inside, but then he gets next to no screen time for the movie, everything he attempts goes nowhere, and he has nothing at all to do with the events at large. If Gamera had killed him early on, nothing else in this movie would have changed in the slightest. Overall, Gammera the Invincible is a really enjoyable movie that gives us a unique monster with memorable powers and a nice design, but because the plot is so basic, the characters so underdeveloped, and the climax so anticlimactic, I can't in good conscience give it any higher than 3 musicians crushed underfoot out of 5.
Considering the supernumerary number of kaiju films that exist, Gamera manages to stand out with the public. I will admit to having a soft spot for the character itself, though that perhaps is due to my personal love of mutant turtles.
Awesome! Righteous! Bossa Nova! What? Bossa Nova?
The first Gamera film doesn't hold up well against today's standards. Special effects aside, a few things about this film are downright mystifying, like Gamera's jet-propelled flight power. I also agree with the statement about quite a number of characters feeling unnecessary. The highlight of the film is undoubtedly watching Gamera Rampage. Everything else is either tedious or superfluous. The result leaves me wondering whether the original cut of the film wasn't done much better. Thus, Gamera rates 2 jet-propelled turtle shells out of 5.
You've got to admit, though, that was awesome.
Well, this movie wasn't too bad. Perhaps I reviewed this unwittingly, but it could have been far worse.
I'm so happy for you. When will this be over? What are you reviewing next week, anyway?
Oh, that. I'm reviewing the...
Never mind, I don't want to know! I want out! There must be some way to neutralize this magic! Of course! It's so obvious! With science!
Oh, this won't end well.
May you remember never to mix science with magic outside of a program where the plot allows for such conveniences.
I'm never gonna get used to that.
We're not going anywhere.
Wait.
I say we should stay here and dance. How about it? Yeah!